Listen to this disc jockey's introduction to Montavani.
What up? It's your boy Oshin. This is Oshin's View. You already know who I'm in the building with. Well, little brother Devin Epps ain't here. And I'm so used to saying that, so I'm just on cue. He's not with us today, but he'll be back next week. Willie Negro, he's on the boards today, so you know how that goes.
What's going on?
And also here with my mentor. And I need y'all to pay attention because I don't give that stamp to everybody. Like, don't hit me with little bros and all that. I got people that kind of already earned that slot for me to even respect them enough to say that. This person right here who I'm about to introduce, he's definitely been a mentor to me, not just professionally, but also personally. You don't get a whole lot of new people in your circle the older you get in life. But I always welcome great people, and he turned out to be one of the greater people that I've ever met. This is why I admire this guy. I look up to him, and he's just doing a whole lot of great things and everything, so I had to bring him up here. My man, Hartford Road's own Cornell Dews in the building.
Yes, sir. Great introduction.
Now, the reason why I was able to do it, I didn't write that anything because that's just how I felt. Yeah. We have a special relationship. We connected. It was funny because when I first met him, it was like I was kind of standoffish because first off, he reminds me of you, Will, because he's stylish. Like, he's a stylish dude. And this is, as the kids say, this is no cap. Like, I'm serious. Like, no, he's stylish, and I'm peeping. As he's coming to work every day, he's dapper. It's either a P code and things like that. I'm sitting there like whatever. Like, I'm definitely like I guess, you know what I'm saying? I guess he all right. And on top of that, it didn't make it no better because him and the principal at the time, they was cool. So I'm already like, so everybody just all in it together.
He was hating.
They all definitely was hating. It's like, whatever.
But look, can I say?
No, please, go ahead.
This right here.
Yeah.
You know, when we were working at, it was a school with, it's an ED program.
Yeah.
Right? So he told me later when we became cool, he said, well, you know, we was betting on the side that you wouldn't stay here. You wouldn't last long. Right? I come in with my suit on, I got my shirt and tie. Right? I didn't realize that I'm a teacher. Yeah. So I'm thinking I'm just here to teach, instruct. But I'm like, whoa, hold up. I might have to put somebody in the hole. My man on the side betting like, no, he's not going to do this. Look at him. He got slippery arrows on. He's not going to be able to do this. And then one day he saw me get busy. But that's not what I came to do. But if it's what I require, if it's what's required and expected, then it is. And for the best, in the best interest of the students and their safety, right?
Absolutely.
But after I got it, and then we became cool, my man pulled up side. He said, well, you know, we had a bet on you. We didn't expect you to stay here and all, right? But I managed to stay there for a couple of years.
Now, he definitely did. And he's one of the persons that actually made it easy for me to go, like, to stay there. Yeah. Like, I'm going to tell you like this. We all work in the school systems. And so what people don't get is, when you work in the school system, if you don't have somebody you can confide in and get your frustration off on, it's a hard day. Yeah. It's a long, lonely day. And it's tough. Like this, people that have that, so to speak, they still have hard days. So if you don't have it, and I'm kind of a person that can't, y'all know me, I can stay to myself for the most part, but it'll definitely get to a point where I will explode if I don't have somebody to, all right, this ain't the time. I hear your frustration, da-da-da-da-da. And he was one of the guys, he was the guy that made it fun for me to come to work. Because it wasn't financial.
It's hard work. Sometimes you just gotta laugh through the pain. You need somebody there with you to keep you grounded, and also to just tell that joke when everything is upside down. You know what I mean?
And I'm gonna tell you too, and you know him even longer than I do, right? The conversations that we used to have, like everything that I'm saying materialize in your life, you spoke it into existence even then, right? Mm-hmm. So like during our breaks, I remember you telling me, boy, look, I'm looking at this 745 BMW, right? Mm-hmm. I remember that. And then it wasn't long after you having the conversation that you came and picked me up on Harford Road, right? Just so I could see the 745, right? Like everything, talking about your mom, talking about how you were raised, where you was raised, what you was into, and me sharing as well, right? Having someone to confide in. Besides doing the work, we did the work, right? But you know, when you work with young people and interacting and engaging with young people all day, right? It's not like we work in a business where we got a cubicle where we could go and put our head down, or you could get up from your desk and take a walk. We work with children. We serve in that capacity. And it's nice to have like-minded individuals within your circle.
Absolutely.
At a place of business. You know, that when you have downtime, when you've transitioned your students to a special or resource or out the door, that you can sit down after a long day and just engage in a healthy conversation with your brother. You know what I mean? So you've said that to me for many years, that you look at me as a mentor, right? And you and I have both learned from one another, both personally and professionally, right? And I hold you in high regard, and I mean that. You know what I mean? I see you as my brother, and I mean that sincerely, you know? So all of the great things that you're doing, I celebrate you. You know what I mean? Having me here, I celebrate you, and I'm thankful and I'm appreciative for you and your man to have me here. I had to ask my wife if it was all right for me to leave out on a Friday. You know what I mean?
Oh, you really going to a podcast?
Yeah, sure, I'm doing podcast. I'm moving up in the world.
I'm like, it's been over 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, if I was going to step out, I would have been dead. Like, I just got to be honest with you. If I was going to do it,
She
it would have
probably,
been happening.
the way I rub my mouth all the time, she probably like, no, go ahead and take a break. Go ahead, Sweat. Give me a break. But, you know, again, man, I just want to commend you.
Nah, I appreciate it because the thing about it, what made me actually reach out is because your messages on social media, and I'm going to say, honestly, for myself, probably within the last 2-3 weeks. I see it. You're my brother, so I'm going to double tap regardless of what. Sometimes I'm not even looking. It's him, tap. Just to let him know I'm supporting. Cool, no problem. But then one of the days, I was like, let me actually listen. Let me really see what he's talking about. And the one that got me, and I want you to go more in depth of yourself. It was an 8-minute. It was an 8-minute one when you were in church. You were in church, and you were giving your testimony. And it's not about verbatim, but I definitely wanted you to give your testimony from there because I've always known you as a positive person, always somebody. Some people, and I asked him the same thing too. I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. Yourself, him, and maybe 2 more of my friends that I call brothers too. I be like, and I think I said it to him before. I was like, yo, do you and your wife, do y'all argue? Because I don't really see y'all. I was like, because certain people, I know how I am. I'm going to pick an argument for the smallest thing because I just be looking for engagement one way or another. But I don't view y'all as that. I be looking like, who argues with them? Or who's going back and forth with them like that? So that's when I saw that. I want you to go.
I'm going to tell you this, though, right? Just to speak to that before I share the testimony piece, right? I was just talking to a good friend of mine who I'm teaching in D.C. now. So we were talking before we started about the commute, right? So I'm taking the commute. I teach middle school math there, right? And as I found in you a brotherhood, right, and a brother and a lifelong friend, I've also met some cool people out there, right? So I was just engaging one of the brothers there, and I told him, I said, one of my closest friends said to me, he said, man, you the most righteous brother I know, right? He said that to me, and I laughed, right? Because he know me, right? And I shared with the brother, I said, man, do you know how hard I'm trying to be right? You know what I mean? Not perfect, but present myself right, right? I said, my wife, I've been with my wife for 27 years, right? God willing, the 22nd of May this year make 24 years that we've been married, right? 2 daughters. With that being said, I say, man, I'm just like everybody else. I'm trying. on a day-to-day basis to present myself right, do right, be right, treat people right. You know what I mean? So even in the workspace, I talk about this. A young lady a couple of weeks ago, she said, "Mr. Dews, do you ever get angry?" And I smiled. And I said, "Of course I do." I said, "But you won't see me angry." You know what I mean? Not at my place of business. I got a wife to go home and confide in. I'm going to drop it off there. And once I let it go there, pray about it, leave it there, then I'm going to get up and I'm going to come out like everything all right. You know what I mean? I tell my students that. Extremely transparent, because some days it's not the best days, even though I'm trying every day. You know what I mean? Not trying to be perfect, because I know I'm far from that. I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to make the right decisions. You know what I mean? Like I'm really from where I'm from. You know what I mean? And my testimony that you talked about, it could have been completely different. It could have been completely different from me. It could be different when I leave here. But by the grace of God. Yeah. So look, I'm trying to do the right things, bro. And I don't always get it right. If my wife was sitting here, she might side-eye you and me, right? But I'm mindful. We talked about being intentional.
Yeah.
I'm conscious. It's important to me how I present myself to others. I don't want anybody to write a narrative about me. I want to be the writer of my own, the author of my own narrative. I know how important perception is. It's extremely important to me, but I do know some people will perceive something that's not actually true, but it's their truth. It becomes their truth, but it doesn't necessarily have to be my truth, right? So you mentioned about the testimony that you heard with the morning, the daily affirmations and the morning motivations, right? It's something that I've always wanted to do. The video that you referenced, the 8-minute video, it was an opportunity at my church. My wife and I, we were presented an opportunity to lead Men and Women's Day, right? So it's a day where you recognize individuals in the church for their great work, their contribution over the past year. So my wife and I, we're stepping into leadership roles, right? Even with that being said, and talking about stepping into leadership roles in that position, it was my wife who was more involved and engaged than even I was from the jump, right? But I know a man is supposed to lead his family, you know what I mean? So I accept that responsibility. I'm not going to leave my wife out there by herself. So from some things that we've been doing, we were identified, recognized, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Dews, we want y'all to lead. Would y'all be up to it? Without a doubt. My wife did the majority of the leg work. I was her support. But what was asked by the pastor, he said, Cornell, I want you to extend the invitation at the end of church, right? After the whole event. He said, I want you to extend the invitation. So I was like, all right. Now, public speaking for most people is the greatest fear, right?
Yeah.
Like 9 out of 10. Yeah. 9 out of 10, right? And that's not to say that I don't get nervous, but I'm comfortable enough to share. Yeah. And especially when you being your true authentic self. You know what I mean? So it's not like I got to think about what I'm saying. I just need to open my mouth and speak. But the testimony is, I said, my grandmother prayed for me, right? I am from Harford Road in Darley, to be specific, over east, right? I grew up there. Now, we know that the community that it is now, though my family still lived there, my mom is still there, we still got our family home there, right? And when people think about the neighborhood where I'm from and they see it now, it's different than what it was when I was raised there. It was a community when I was raised there, so it was different. But we were still exposed to some things that young people shouldn't be exposed to, I'll share with you about my dad. My dad fell victim to societal ills. You know what I mean? My father had a substance abuse issue for practically my whole life. You know what I mean? That could have caused things to be completely different for me, right? Thankfully for me, in my home, I had a grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who was there. Like, I've never been a latchkey kid, right? Yeah. I've never had a babysitter. You know what I mean? With both my parents out the house working. I mentioned my father falling victim to societal ills and suffering from substance abuse issues, and the drug of choice was heroin at the time. right? So, Baltimore was impacted heavily by that drug, especially during the 70s and the 80s, right? And I'm talking about growing up. A child born in the 70s became of age in the 80s, so I'm talking about that time. Life could have been completely different, but only by the grace of God. My parents were working. My father at the time would be considered a functioning addict, but my grandmother was always there, right? And I come from a home, like many of our homes during that time, where you had a grandmother, parents, an uncle, a cousin. You know what I mean? Though I'm the only child, I wasn't by myself. So when I referenced my grandmother prayed for me, I wasn't brought up in the church. You know what I mean? My father actually studied the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? So I had all those resources and materials to me early on, but my mom and my grandmother were Christians, So for me, I remember as a young child, as a young boy, that they didn't force it on me. My parents were like, he'll decide which way. But what I realized is all my morals, values, and principles come from the Bible. You know what I mean? Like, and that was instilled in me from my grandmother and reinforced by my parents. So when I said my grandmother prayed for me, we didn't go to church on Sundays, right? I got fresh on Easter Sunday, right? Just to take pictures. To take pictures. But after that, we disrobe, put on a sweatsuit. You know what I mean? A feline sweatsuit, something like that. You know what I mean? But I didn't go to church. But I mentioned this in my 8-minute testimony, which was extremely long, and I probably could have talked for another 8 minutes. I'm certain that I could have. I said the only time I even went to a Bible study was in they had summer Bible study, right? And I was only going there at the time because they used to give out these lemon cookies and this fruit punch, right? And you couldn't get the lemon cookies and fruit punch from anywhere.
He's not even in the store.
And now they're just going on, Jack. You know what I mean? That's the only reason why I was there during the summertime, right? But I grew up in a neighborhood, man, where most of my homeboys got jammed up. Right? In some way or another. Not because they had to, because come from similar backgrounds, but our choices that we made. I've been exposed to different things, done some things, you know what I mean, that I know is only by the grace of God. And I wasn't praying for myself. So I know somebody had to be praying for me. Plus, as I stated, the neighborhood that I came from, it was a community. So not just were my parents and grandmother and my family who held me to high standards and had high expectations for me, but the people outside. You know what I mean? Like when I walked out the door, we had neighborhood block watches, right? In the community, what was going on in my home was taking place in other people's homes as well. Same expectations that my family had for me inside the house and how to conduct myself outside the house, my neighbors felt the same way. So even if I had neighbors, God bless the dead, is a gentleman named Mr. Tate. Mr. Tate was a 97-year-old man, and you can look this up, and I wrote a piece on Mr. Tate some years ago, a few years back. Mr. Tate was a 97-year-old man, and he lost his life in the same neighborhood that he was one of the first black families to integrate with his family, with his wife, Mr. and Mrs. Tate, right? Mr. Tate would see me if I was walking with a group or doing something where it looked like it was suspicious. Man, my family called me man. The people in the community know me as man. Man, come here. And I go and sit with Mr. Tate. Well, what you doing? And he'll engage me. Even if the group I was walking with wanted to say, no, y'all go ahead. Man, gonna sit right here. You know what I mean? Like I had elders in the neighborhood that saw me, right? And was like, yo, something's different about him. You know, and a lot of our young people, right, they fight that. Like, no, I ain't different. I'm crazy too. How wild. But no, it's all right to be different. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's all right to be different and be comfortable with yourself. You know, and I was able to do that early on to a certain degree. Yeah. Right? Because you do want to fit in. Because one of the posts that I made, Jack, I said that I strive to be like more like Peanut King before I ever wanted to be like Dr. King, right? And Peanut King was a gentleman from East Baltimore who I never met personally. I just heard a lot of stories about him, right? And if you ever seen mopeds, it was a lot of dudes who was, you know what I mean? And he was of great influence in the community. I did used to correspond with him. I wrote him, and he would write me back because I wanted to be able to share his story with some young people I was working with at the time. I'm saying that to say I was influenced by the things that I saw and observed. When I saw dudes riding these mopeds, fresh Adidas forms, felines, right? Big gold dookie necklaces, ropes, 4 5-finger rings and all that. I'm like, yo, I told my parents at a very young age, my mother like, man, what you want to be when you grow up? I'm about 10, 11 years old in middle school. Ma, I don't know what I want to be, but whatever they doing, I want to do the same thing. Only by the grace of God. You know what I mean? Only by the grace of God. Plus, we all come, I might be a few years older than y'all, but y'all can relate to this as well. We come up during a time where it was important for us not to disrespect our parents. Yeah. Not just our parents, but our elders, right? And to shame our family. You know what I mean? Like that's I'm conscious of that to this day.
The thing about it, you said you said a lot. But the thing about one of the things that you said earlier, that always stuck with me.
What's that, bro?
When you told me I don't want to just look right because I can appear to be anything I want to be, but I want to be right.
I want to be right.
That was one of the Jews that always personally stayed with me because I've went on to tell other people that too, to get it off to them like, look here, I can make you view me any kind of way I choose to make you view me. This is why I know for myself, I'm like, when I don't get mad when somebody says, yo, when I first met you, I didn't really like you. Because I know where that came from. It's a few things. I was like, I know how I move. And it might not be your cup of tea that first time you see me. So you get that grace to be like, okay. Now, I personally feel once you get to know me, and I'm not even talking about you don't have to know me forever, but if you get to know me, talk to me, you'll be like, nah, it's kind of not what I thought. He gives off this role, but one of the things I wanted to address was, it started giving me flashbacks and you were talking because for me, in my Harlem days and then in the Bronx and everything, I had an escape. Yes, sir. And I think a lot of people don't because I've been asked by people, notably, I don't have to say this gentleman's name. He was a white guy, and he said we were kind of talking, going over my story. He was telling me about how things went with him, and he asked me. He said, "Well, if all your friends did all that." Why didn't you get caught up in it? And I had to wait for a second. I was like, you know what? I said, because what was going on outside wasn't going on in my house. Definitely. And I had to think about that afterwards. And I was like, was I just saying that because it sounded like something right to say? But then I had to go back in my mind. I was like, no, the streets didn't mirror my house. Like, I would go to a friend's house and, okay, small example. In my house, it was literally survival of the fittest, but not in the sense of we're going to starve. It was only 3 of us in there, really 2, because my brother is 14 years my senior, so he's been grown forever. He's always had his own place, but he had a key there quite naturally. So it was really just me and my mom. So basically, if something is left there, so if it's a cake or something, I'll just use something like that. It's not one of those, well, why would you eat the whole cake? Nobody else got a piece. That joint is like, I guess you wanted a whole cake, and that's it. So there wasn't no competition in my house. Friends, I've go to certain friends' house. They got uncles. I've seen walking past rooms to get to a friend's bedroom. I've seen people shoot up like that, and I'm like I'm running out their house. I'm just looking like, oh wow, this is what's going on for real. This is their norm, and everybody's just going about their window. About their business. And then I would see locks on the doors and stuff like that. And I was looking like, got a lock on your door? Because this is your home. This is blowing my mind because your home is that's your safe space. But
a lot of people that grow up kind of, even in a good home, still turn that way. You see what I'm saying? I think that what a lot of young people don't have is a good sense of self. You see what I'm saying? Because I people around me was doing all kinds of craziness, all kinds of stuff. But I was a kid who just looked in the mirror, like, and I knew it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me. It couldn't have been. I'm not that. You know what I mean? I knew from a very young age that I wasn't that. And I think I found out early on that if you be yourself all the time, people respect that.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Whatever that is.
Whatever that
people
is.
respect you being authentic. You see what I'm saying? That's why I could move with the bookworms and the drug dealers and the killers. Because they knew who Will was. You see what I'm saying? And they knew what I would they really couldn't really influence me to do something too far off of my character. You know what I mean? And even if they tried, they knew that I was a stand-up guy. Like, nah, that ain't me. I'm not doing that.
He's not doing that.
You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. I'm not going there.
Yo,
you know what I mean?
You know what I think? Something that I have a greater appreciation for even now, right? I referenced my father, right? My father passed away in 2017 due to throat cancer complications, right? And for, like, out of all my homeboys, most of my homeboys that I grew up with, my father was the only one who was in the house.
Yeah.
Right? Now, my father may have been doing many of the same things, or maybe not, that my homeboys, my peers' fathers was doing. But my father was always in the house, right? Growing up with a man, I think, for me, I can't make this blanket statement for everyone. I will attempt to, because I understand the importance of, and we're all fathers here, right? Growing up with a man in the house, right? It could be an older sibling. That wasn't in my case. It could be an older uncle that's actively involved, engaged, or got a presence. Made the biggest difference in my life for me, right? Now, I used to say every Father's Day, every birthday card that I give my father, I used to write in there, "Thank you for staying." And my father, after a while, he was a real slick dude, right? And I can relate to everything you just said as far. I'm a nerd for real, you know what I mean? But I'm a slick dude. You know what I mean? You got to be multifaceted. You know what I mean? My father's a slick dude. And one time he said, "Dad, man, you act like that's all I did. I didn't do more than that." And I was like, "No, but that was the most important thing you did." Right? Because of that and how I was raised, I understand hierarchy, right? I understand position. Plus, I ain't trying to impress myself in no group of men. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, I know who I am in that group. I think I'm him, right? Because of him. I think that, right? Lowercase H-I-L. Because of the uppercase H-I-L. You know what I mean? But, and I've always been comfortable being myself, right? You said something, Will. You said in the mirror. And when you said that, I didn't know if you were speaking figuratively or literally, right? But as an only child, I spent a lot of time talking to myself. The daily affirmations that I give, I normally say, this is a personal conversation that I'm just sharing with y'all publicly, right? Yeah. I spent the majority of my life talking to myself and engaging myself. I done already pumped myself up, you know, before I walk out. So I'm comfortable. And in my group, I'm all right in my group. I'm the one in my group that'll be like, "Yo, you know, we don't have to do that. I'm not doing that." Right. You don't have to do that, right? I may have just been a little more strong-willed not to do some things, because I ain't trying to say, like, I ain't done nothing. Right. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying I may have been a little more strong-willed not to do some things that I was comfortable with, right? I wouldn't be, but I don't think nobody ever, spoke disrespectful of me for making the decisions that I made. Right. You know what I mean? And I'm all right. I'm all right across the board. But I'm thankful because my father was there, right? And I'm a mama's boy, right? But my father was there, so it gave me perspective, and it gave me some confidence. It helped me understand leadership. It helped me understand hierarchy. It helped me understand just to be confident in myself amongst other males, you know, that I'm not trying to impress nobody. Like, that's one of the things. And we all teach, we're all educators, and working with young men, you know what I mean, young black males. I spent the majority of my time being an urban educator. I tell them, we not trying to be no crash dummy, right? I don't want you to be no test dummy for nobody, no crash dummy. And that's not who I am. You know what I mean? Ain't nobody putting a battery in my back. If anything, I'm putting a battery in somebody else's back. You know what I mean? And that's who I've tried to be. You know, so yeah, same thing that you say, homeboy. Like, we seen it in our neighborhoods, right? We've seen it in our neighborhoods, and unfortunately, it's even worse now. You know, but by the grace of God, I was able to navigate that, and I won't say that I left unscathed. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I managed.
They having these conversations with y'all too, especially, it opens up stuff because the more I'm sitting here and I'm just going over my life as well too. Both of y'all grew up with y'all fathers. I did, and I don't say that to try to sound cool because I noticed that too.
Yeah,
a lot of people try to put rank in. Yeah, I ain't have no father. Nah, clearly there's somebody. Don't say it like this. Now, have I heard the name before? I have. Never met the gentleman or whatever. Being an only child, I've sat around at times not waiting for a father figure because my brother was kind of my father figure. Especially, like I said, he wasn't a couple of years older. 14 years, so that's a long time. So you figure when I was 8,
22.
and he, you know what I'm saying? He was already, and that's just being at 8. He was grown. That's who took me. We're going to get on our hip hop stuff. That's who took me to go see Crush Groove. I didn't want to see Crush Groove because I asked for it. I had to come with him. You see what I'm saying? Like that. I had to reference that so we have our hip hop conversation. Why it was so early with me. But
me too. My uncle,
Exactly.
my uncle Ren.
So
he's 10 years older than me.
I say all that to say it's like one of the things I think of, and I don't think y'all had these thoughts because, like I said, y'all parents were there. I was like, how would have turned out if I had a father there? Because when you're used to living your life, how you've been living it, now it's easy for me to say things could have been different if he was here, but I don't think I missed anything. And it took time me getting maybe in my 30s that I started thinking, I was like, yeah, the ball was dropped a few places. And I never got a chance to tell my mother that because I don't think she did a bang-up job. She did an excellent job if you ask me. But the thing about it is I still, there are times that I felt I needed help with a decision.
Definitely.
And I made the decision because my mother's teaching was, I will support whatever your decision is because you have to live with the consequences. And on one hand, that's a great way to look at it. But then there's a part of me that was yearning for, just tell me what to do. Like I don't have a clue. You see what I'm saying? I don't have a clue. And it's not a woe is me type of thing, but you can pinpoint certain things in your life where you like, I made this decision, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I kind of flipped a coin. And I flipped a coin a lot in my life. And sometimes it'll work out for the best. Sometimes it's not about sorely not working out, but it's kind of like, had you just told me, because sometimes, because, you know, he raps and all that too. He's great. But
great.
Yeah, he's great. You know, I don't give it up. Trust me. And people know. I know. Y'all know me. I know.
There's 3 rappers in the house.
I know. I'm cool. I don't want to start crying. I don't want to start crying. I don't want to start crying. So I'm going to keep it in. But what you going? The whole thing was, it's like, I'll sit back like, sometimes I wish certain decisions, they would have been like, nah, you don't see it. I'm going to make this decision for you. Trust me, it's going to work out. You're going to probably be a little upset because you might have been thinking something else, but you got foresight and you just told me. So I felt that maybe that's what I missed by not having my father around and my mother being the support system that she was. So little things like that, I don't point the finger, but that's why I think I kind of exude that to other people too, because y'all know me. I'm at heart, I'm whatever the group says. If it works out, let's do it. But most times I get thrown to the front of the bus, and it's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm looking like, fine, somebody's got to make the decision. I'll make the decision. And if it goes great, I'm excited. If it goes great, I'm going to share the championship. But I already know when it goes left, the spotlight's going to be on me. And initially, of course, you be like, well, what happened to everybody else? I just got to the point at a young age where I'm like, this is what it is. Like, he'll joke with me, other people joke with me, like, yo, it's your fault. And I'm like, join the list. Like it's always, like, I'm an easy person to put it on and everything.
My experience with my father was a little different. My father left the home when I was 9. Yeah. He never left my life, but he left the home when I was 9. And he taught me like a whole lot of man lessons, a whole lot of man stuff. Some toxic stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah. But my dad was like a real manly man. I really miss my dad. He just passed away in 2020. And cause I never got to tell him like his impact on my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I never really got to tell him because he was always guilty. He always felt guilty for leaving the home. You know what I mean? He really loved my mom. They were best friends until the day he passed, but he just couldn't, he was toxic, man. He couldn't get right. You know what I mean? But I really do wish that I had the chance to really tell him how he positively impacted my life. You know what I mean? From it's just certain stuff that I find myself doing, certain ways that I find myself having that that I just remind myself of my father so much. My mom liked to say all the time, like, I got all the good of him. You know what I mean? She also says that him leaving was the best thing for us because we got to experience all the good of him. You know what I mean? We didn't get to experience the toxic parts of him. You know what I mean? And it was just a different experience. You know what I mean? I really gained a lot from that experience. And I look around. We talked about it before. Like my pop taught me how to shoot a basketball, hit a baseball, throw a football. You know what I mean? My pop taught me about his mistakes. He was really candid about his mistakes. You know what I mean? It taught me a lot. And I think the reason that I'm the man that I am today is because my mom chose to leave and my dad told me why. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I practice a lot of doing what he wouldn't do. And then in some situations, how will my pop handle this? How do I just be a man in this situation? How do I lead in this situation? You know what I mean? Because my pops was very much a leader. Sometimes the wrong way, but
You know what, Will, Jack, man, I had an opportunity to share with my dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna tell you, I held a lot of resentment towards my dad for many years, right?
When did you? I want you to continue, but when did the resentment start?
I can tell you exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can tell you exactly.
All right.
So look, my father, like by the time I was in middle school, went to middle school, 6th grade.
Yeah.
And you would see things outside. I grew up during the 80s, right? So I came of age during the 80s, born in the 70s, but came of age during the 80s, right? And it was different. I was just telling some young people, man, like it wasn't what you did, it was how you did it, right? So right now, I could be sitting on my porch with my 75-year-old mother, and it could be a neighbor porches away smoking a blunt, right? That never took place in the 80s. You know what I mean? Intravenous drug users used to wear long sleeve shirts so you couldn't see their track marks in the summertime. You know what I mean? Like, so by the time I got to middle school, I knew what was going on in the community, but I didn't know how it may have been impacting my life, right? So one day I got nosy. I used to hear my father going to the bathroom, and my bedroom was next to next to the bathroom, in between my parents. My bedroom was in between my parents' room and the bathroom. And I used to hear the water run when my dad was in there, right? But it was a consistent run, and it was never provoked, right? It was just a consistent run. So I knew you couldn't be washing your hands. I knew you couldn't be doing anything because it didn't break the flow of the water. And one day I just got curious, and I peeped in the bathroom to see what my father was doing in there, right? And what I saw, a young boy shouldn't see, you know what I mean? He was engaging in activity, you know what I mean? And it broke my heart because I, like most boys, you know, you hold your father to a, like my father, you know what I mean? Like
Superman.
yeah, my father and I emulated my father. When my father could walk into a room and just like through his stories, through his talking, through his engagement, you know what I mean? He could just attract everyone in the room. And I used to sit and just watch and observe my father do that as a child with his friends or with his peers and the adult. And I used to be like, I want to do that. And I would emulate him when I went around my cousins, right? My grandmother would be like, he ain't doing nothing but lying, talking about my father. And you know, but everybody be laughing, he'd be telling stories, and it was good, right? Good-hearted. And it was a lot of laughter in my house as a child. And a lot of it was prompted by my dad, you know what I mean? And then I would emulate that. But when I peeped through the keyhole and I saw my father engaging in drug use, it hurt me. Right, it hurt me. So when you ask when the resentment started early, right, about middle school age. But allow me to share this though. So for a long time, as a child, not understanding, I thought my father chose drugs over his family. You know what I mean? Not realizing that my father had a substance abuse issue before he even had a family. You know what I mean? And as a grown man, I better understand that my father had some things transpire in his life that he didn't know how to deal with. The death of his father, who was Superman to him. You know what I mean? Like he had some things that he didn't know how to deal with. You know, it wasn't, our parents weren't encouraged to do therapy and go counseling and stuff like that. You know, you don't share your business with people. You don't hang your dirty laundry outside. So you self-medicated, right? But as a child, I don't understand that. Yeah. So look, I'm gonna fast forward. That's in my pre-teens, teens. So resentment, but he's still there, right? But I still don't understand the value of that, right? Then one day I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna skip. About in my 30s, I got my own family by this time, married. You know what I mean, got my own home. And one day, this particular day, me, my dad, and some cousins of mine from New York was in town. Right, we were sitting on my family's porch, and we talking, and we having a great time. And my father and I ended up in the kitchen around the same time, right at the refrigerator. And my father just stopped me, and he said, man, he said, I know we ain't have, or we don't have the father-son relationship that you want. He said, but I did the best I could. He said that to me, right? But when he said it to me, I'm gonna show you how immature I was. I was kind of like, this the best. I didn't say that to him because even though he fell victim to societal ills, we was raised to respect out regardless. Always got the utmost respect. Not gonna be disrespectful, but when he said it, what I thought to myself was, come on, daddy. Called him daddy to this dying day. Come on, daddy. I felt a particular way, right? Now I'm gonna fast forward. It's in my 30s. Father passed away 2017. Up until that point, up until my father got sick with cancer, I thought he owed me an apology. I thought I wanted an apology from him. I thought I wanted him to sit down and say, man, look, this what transpired. This what led me to do what I did. I'm sorry, right? I felt real selfish of me, you know, without even considering it. My father gets sick with cancer. So there was a time where both of my parents were battling cancer. I would leave one hospital from seeing my mother and going to the other hospital to see my father, right? I'm spending time with my father in the hospital. We're having conversations in the hospital that we wouldn't normally have at home outside the presence of my mother. Right? So, and even when my mother was well enough to be home, she used to say, "Man, I want to see you, Dad. Why didn't you take me?" And I used to be like, "Nah, mine was, you know what I mean? Like we just sit and engage, and we would have conversations." And before he passed away, I realized that he didn't owe me an apology. In actuality, I owed him an apology, right? Because I forgot the hierarchy that I referenced earlier. Right? Regardless of what he fell victim to, he's still my father. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was raised a particular way. And he's had a more than major impact on my... So when we would sit there, and then it came around to where it was like he was ready to tell me, this what Trent... But by that time, I'm embarrassed now. You know what I mean? Like, nah, Daddy, we good. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, I owe you an apology.
You just, wow, this is actually turning a little more therapeutic than I actually wanted it to be. But it's cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm around love, so this is what I do. But
and we still gonna talk about hip hop.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. Yes. But I what you call it, when you were saying that, I did have a gentleman. He's actually my grandfather.
Yes, sir.
And just to give people a peek into the book that's coming, the audio video book that's coming.
Yes, sir.
Y'all know my mother is not technically my mother; it's my grandmother.
Yes, sir.
So the gentleman was my grandfather. So after she already passed, me and I had that kind of conversation. But I felt the things he was saying, he was looking for absolution. That's how I took it, you know, like that. So I just was just like whatever to it. Things were going on within my family and stuff. I felt they owed me more. I felt entitled to a lot of things because my mother, she put it out there. She said, if this goes left with me, she was like, I need you to start thinking about yourself a little more. So I was like, what you mean? She was like, you have this tendency to make sure everybody else is all right and you would just take the shorter end because in your mind, everything will be fine. And she was just like, yo, like, if I'm not around, some of these same people aren't going to hold you in the same regard. So you have to make sure you're fine before, you can look out. And I started going through some financial troubles. So, and it was crazy because y'all, this is something I did in real life, but I got it off of a movie. And I know I'm a movie guy, you know what I'm saying? And as soon as I laugh, I definitely, this was around, I want to say, 2007, 8-ish, one movie came out, American Gangster. No lie. So when Bumpy died, remember the scene when Denzel was like, half the people in this room owe Bumpy money when he died. I'm going to get that money. I literally was on that time with people in my family. No, I swear to God. My whole thing was, y'all owe me money. I'm going to get that money. Y'all owe me money. And I know because I'm the one there getting the phone call. So this is how it was in my mind. When people would call and would ask my mother for money, she would be like, let me call you back. Let me see. Y'all know, come on, we off in old school. Let me see if I can move some things around. That's just a way of saying, let me wait to see if I'm going to give it to you or not. So she would come to me and be like, such and such after some money. What do you think? And I would, now granted, at the end of the day, it's her decision. Right. It's her money. But she would ask me, and I'd be like, certain people, I'm like, nah, they've always been cool. They gave money back when they were supposed to give it back. It's cool. Right. And then some people, I used to be like, I don't know, last time you gave him the money, it took him like two months or whatever. So in my mind, when she passed, and now that I'm going through financial issues, not only should y'all be willing to help me, now you owe me the money too. But I had to go to family members. I'm like, I'm going to give it back to you. Knowing that this was, I ain't gonna lie, this was a sucker move on my part. I was saying I'm going to pay y'all back, but I knew I was not giving them back the money. I had no intentions of giving back the money. And I'm talking about, I didn't just ask one person. I made rounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, yo, and mind you, you use that "I've never asked before" to your advantage. So they like, oh, if he's asking, he must really need it. I'm talking about 500 over here, 1,000 out of you, another 500 over here. Mind you, nobody got their money back. It took my brother, who he kind of calmed the waters. It was like, look here, he going through a rough time. Mimi looked out for a lot of y'all. Y'all should want to get to help him out. And they kind of started calling like, you know what? You were right, you know, Mimi definitely helped me out with this, that, and the third. And in my mind, I said thank you out loud, but I was just in my mind, I was like, that's what I was thinking. Shit, that's the least you can do. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna give her back every dollar, but you can at least make sure I'm okay. So when I'm hearing y'all say these things or whatever, and it's like, I had such an opposite effect in terms of the man, because my brother, he's that image to me. You know, I was like that. And a lot of things he did, it wasn't based off how he talks. It's just how you move, how you said with your father. This is the thing with my brother. He didn't do a lot of talking around us, but I would catch him outside, and he's the life of the party. And I'm like, what? I was like, he doesn't say 2 words when he walks in his house, but when he's outside, yo, country, what's up? And he's funny. He's cool. I remember the first time I seen him shoot a basketball. First off, he made the drug dealer shot. And he wasn't no drug dealer. Yo,
drug dealer shot.
He pulled from half court. That shit was like swish. I was like, and you can play ball. All this time, you ain't even show me. I was like, this nigga can do everything or whatever. So that's why sometimes when I hear people say things like, well, you're not my father, especially with a gentleman that has stepped in and did the work, I think that's disrespectful. Because when my thing is this, I get the whole, because my thing is you're using that as a technicality. Oh, you know, fine, I can say it too. You're yeah, but not if you're doing the work. Not if you're doing the work. So I never like that. And like I said, y'all two will bless you. I know we can go on and on about the stories of y'all fathers and stuff. And being the men that y'all are, I can see the impact that it had on y'all. And like I said, I think probably this is the first time that I actually spoke about it towards y'all, being like, dang, like y'all really did have our parents around, and I can see the difference in y'all, how it is, cause y'all had y'all fathers around. I think I came out pretty good, but it's like, I definitely can admit I feel there was some things that the ball was dropped somewhere that I just wish. So I think that's why I try to do with my son. I'm just going, as long as God willing got me here, I got to at least do that.
100%.
Or whatever.
100%.
You are.